commitments was the commitment on climate resilience. But when you look at the biennial report that was released last year, this particular component of the commitments was one that was never really a major issue that was addressed by most of the member states. Now, considering that now we are here talking about climate smart agriculture, what would be your take on this particular issue? Are our governments really taking climate change as a serious matter to be addressed?
Yeah, thank you very much. And this is an important question in the sense that this is an issue. In fact, when we have looked at the 20 goals of Agenda 2063, the 7 aspirations, and look at, we now have 63 indicators for those 20 goals. And we did an assessment and actually found that all of them, in one or another, you can draw them and link them to sustainable natural resource management. In every way you look at it, whether it's biodiversity protection, ecosystems resilience, sustainable land and water. And because of that, and actually based on that, this is how we have now categorized the 20 goals into 4 impact areas. This is something like drawing a dashboard that is specifically actually linked to the biannual process. We are saying that we would do a detailed review every 2 years. But what do we have on the dashboard of every minister, every government, to tell are they making progress? On the input side of things, like budget, like human resource. On the output side, like what are we changing in terms of human welfare, well-being, in terms of economic growth, GDP and the rest. And you find that all in there, something intertwined through and through is going to be how we deal with our natural resource base. Both as a base for economic in terms of value addition, but it also has implications for everything else you do. And in Africa, we know that very well because we are being impacted quite negatively. And that is why, in terms of how far we are covering it now, and this is what we've realized, there's some challenge in setting up what is the data baselines, what are the modalities and methodologies for standards tools and the standards in terms of comparison of data across countries, across systems. This is not to say there isn't much happening. There's actually a lot happening. And we are hoping actually that in the next report, we will surface that much, much more. Because one is that issues of climate smart agriculture is actually coming in more than one ministry. So it's quite fragmented in terms of who is doing what. And sometimes because of that, it falls through the cracks in terms of real, tangible work and sustainable work over a long time. But the countries on the problem side, they are very clear about problems of siltation in rivers and lakes, issues of drought. Actually, it's also going into just potable water, apart from agriculture, industry, and all those. And this is why when we have categorized these 4 elements of impact areas, economic growth, human well-being, human capital and institutions, and sustainable environmental resilience, we, in terms of action areas, as AUDA, we've picked 2 critical impact areas that relate to this. One is water security, the other one is energy security. And all of them are very direct impacting on human well-being, direct impacting on economic growth. And they all relate to climate change. They all relate to resilience. They all relate to agriculture, especially in terms of resilience to climate change. So in terms of answering your question, I see that we are now working on building proper data sets that can be compared across countries, across ecosystems, across boundaries. We are working on, I did mention earlier in other fora, that one of the things we are doing is actually building a knowledge database of where do we stand today. So we are mapping the whole water resource, both underground and surface water. We are mapping forests and actually indicating the change. We've just done desktop work, but also some GIS work to look at Lake Chad and Lake Victoria. And it's amazing how these lakes are changing. Over short periods of time, Lake Chad in the last 10 years has lost so much of its capacity. And this is happening right in front of our eyes. It's not like generation to generation. So this is what we are saying. We need to pick that baseline and go back to government and say, look, if we go business as usual, in 15, in 20 years, this lake will disappear. This is the rate at which it's going. And what are the options? So we help government to find options and the choices that they can say, let's do this, so that we can not just arrest the degradation, but resuscitate it. It's happening on wetlands, it's happening on riparian areas. We're seeing this on the forests, and some countries actually unknowingly actually clearing forests for urbanization. But what they are putting at risk is the whole ecosystem resilience that will impact on agriculture, will impact on various other livelihood issues.
Yeah. Now, talking about working with governments, we know that governments will always bring in the issue of funds competing with other activities within the national framework.
Yeah.
How do you intend to ensure that governments at least set aside sufficient funds to help in actually generating the necessary data?
Yes.
Because without data, then you'll not be able to succeed in this particular work.
Yeah, it's in fact a huge issue. And it's not so much that they're not putting in funds. There's a lot of funds going in that area in terms of monitoring capacity, monitoring tools and systems. But much of that is not going in the right sets of data, and later on going into the whole chain, so that what is generated is analyzed, is applied, and comes back to inform policy design, comes back to inform program development, investments, and all that. And that's what we are saying, and actually emphasizing that the whole Agenda 2063 is not going to go anywhere in terms of some of its uniqueness if we don't build the knowledge data system. It should stop, and many of them recognize that the issue about achieving development is not a question of money, as it has been previously. Money is important, and we're going to need money. But equally important is knowledge, is our own resource base, which includes our natural resource, our human capital, our institutions. So all these have to come together. A lot of money, it may be unlimited, will not give us what we want if we don't build our institutions, we don't build our human capital, and we don't build the knowledge base. And this is what we are saying in NEPAD, that information, data, knowledge is a critical resource to development. And therefore we should invest in cultivating that. We should invest all the way to intellectual property rights. A lot of today, luckily, there's a lot of technology that is coming up in terms of supporting that field. Data that would have taken maybe 20 years to collect, 10 years, 5 years, you can collect it in a spell of minutes, hours. And therefore, all these geospatial technologies, we are saying surveys will remain important. We're going to do that. But we have to get to also capacity to have real-time data. And this is what the African Union Development Agency is committed to, not just at national level, but at regional level and at continental level, through a very African-based data knowledge hub. Otherwise, how are we going to tell our own story with data about us from somewhere else? No, it won't work.
It's not possible. Now, my last question is this, that we are here for the Climate Smart Agriculture Alliance Forum. how you've just talked about being able to implement what we actually discuss in these meetings.
Yeah.
How do you intend to unpack this to the public, to the governments out there, so that we are able, so that whatever we are discussing here has an impact to the general public across Africa?
Exactly. And particularly this forum, one thing we're emphasizing is that it's a member states forum. So we're trying to make sure that you get the right people in terms of both able to make decisions, but to bring back information to countries that will do three things. Number one is to latch whatever is coming out of this into national programs through the National Development Plan as the overarching strategy, and also the sector plans. And in many countries, you are going to have to deal with agriculture ministry, environment. In some countries, there's water separately, there's livestock, there's forestry. So all those, we have to have a system that this doesn't remain in a book in someone's desk, but is mainstreamed. And as AUDA, we are also working then back through the whole process of domesticating and catalyzing implementation of Agenda 2030. That these are mainstreamed into the National Development Plan and the sector plans. That's number one. Number two, then because of that, then you link to national budgets. And once you link to national budgets, you begin to mainstream in terms of institutional responsibility to make it happen. So they're not going to do it because it's a donor program, because it's an African Union development program, but it's because it's their program and it links to national priorities, and it can go on for a long time. We can go in and out and support them, but it's their program and it's internalized. You are building systemic capacity for that. And that is why we're saying a lot of intervention sometimes, even at country level, we're in a hurry to just do something quickly. And sometimes we do get results and good results, but because we're in a hurry, those results are not anchored on anything. So very quickly they disappear. So we are saying we'll do it in the manner that the systems, the means are important, and it has to relate to transformation. We should grow capacity, we should grow ability, we should grow mindset, so that the ownership and the system is there and is implementation happening. It's a major concern, and in fact, one of the unique elements of Agenda 2030 is to get implementation, that's one thing, but to get implementation that delivers results. So these are actually the marching orders for the African Union Development Agency to collaborate with countries, support them, that there is implementation of development programs, but it has to have results, tangible results that we can show that as a continent, as every country, we are making progress.
True. I want to thank you for that time. I'm sure